Avoir. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the show. I really appreciate that you're spending a couple of moments to get to know Vanessa and Veronica Fernandes. I'm going to do something a little bit different and just give a formal introduction to Vanessa and Veronica, explain a little bit about who they are, and hopefully give a little bit of context to the interview. When I started FitPet Boston Talks, I exclusively did interviews with local dog handling professionals, and it was my mission and goal to get to know people that are in our area. I had to take a step away from doing that back at the end of 2022, but I am going to be getting my feet wet with interviews in 2025. I'm very much excited about that. I have some people on the books scheduled for interviews, and I think that it's going to be really awesome to hear from some new people. Laurie and I keep ourselves busy on the podcast. We do individual episodes and we dive into a bunch of different dog training and handling topics. I hope you enjoy those episodes that we record together. We have a great time doing it, and we record episodes whenever we have time, whenever we can. This project is a labor of love for me. It's something that I enjoy doing, and I don't make any money currently from the podcast. It's not a huge priority for me, but I do have the gift of gab, and I enjoy getting to know people, especially awesome people like Vanessa and Veronica. So Vanessa and Veronica Fernandes are twins. They're 29 years old, and they currently work at She's a Keeper Dog Training in Stow, Massachusetts. Veronica, who we also call Ronnie, is the operations manager and a dog therapy handler at She's a Keeper. And Vanessa is the daycare operations manager and also a dog therapy handler. She's a Keeper is owned by Isis Johnson and Andy Castro. And I just wanted to thank Isis and Andy for harboring and cultivating such an awesome group of trainers over there. They're doing a bang up job. And we frequently refer clients who are outside of our service area or who need a board and train or a different service that we don't offer to She's a Keeper. Veronica and Vanessa hold a Master of Science in Education in Severe Special Education with Specialization in Autism Spectrum Disorder, which is abbreviated ASD, from Simmons University. Right out of college, they worked in a school or residential program that worked with children on the autism spectrum. In that role, they worked full-time while also pursuing that master's degree. Veronica and Vanessa currently are involved in therapy dog visits to schools and to group homes. The Animal Therapy Project, abbreviated ATP, is the name of the organization, which was founded by Isis Johnson and Trevor Bell. The dogs they bring to those visits have been trained by She's a Keeper Dog Training. I also wanted to thank Vanessa and Veronica, first of all, for coming and being so open and honest. This was a very unique interview, and I hope everybody listening really enjoys it. But I also wanted to thank them for going on an adventure. Right when they got to my house, we had to turn around and go look for a lost dog. So about 5 minutes before they were scheduled to come, I got a notification that one of our dog training clients had gone missing at Horn Pond, and Laurie and Vanessa and Veronica and I hopped in the car and were walking around in the woods in the dark trying to find this dog. And he was indeed found and located and returned home. So we're really grateful for that. But we did have a little bit of a late start on our interview. And yeah, it was unexpected. But at the same time, they understood completely and were totally on board to go on the search with very little notice. So we just really wanted to thank you for that. Okay, so without any further ado, here's our interview with Vanessa and Veronica Fernandes. I hope you really enjoy it. Okay, welcome back to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. My name is Leah Lodato, and I am the host of the show. Today, I am joined by my spouse, Laurie.
Hello.
By our good friends, Ronnie and Vanessa.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so good to have you in the studio today. It's not often that we get to have 4 guests on the podcast, but it's been a few episodes where we've had this luxury, I should say. So this is great. If you're new to the podcast, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. It means the world to us that you have chosen to spend your time with us today. And I'm hoping to talk a little bit with Ronnie and Vanessa about their experience with dogs and getting into the dog world. We have turned into really good friends, and I feel so blessed to be able to have them in my life. And I'm glad that you guys had the time today to spend chit-chatting with us. So, just to set the stage a little bit, we had gone out to dinner maybe a few months ago, and Ronnie and Vanessa were telling us about their jobs before they got involved with dogs. And I think both Laurie and I were just sitting there with our mouths open like, holy cow, you guys had quite an experience leading up to what you're currently doing today. So I thought it might be really cool to kind of go back a little bit and talk about what you were doing before getting involved with dogs, and then talk about what you're doing today.
Yay, of course. First off, we are huge fans of the podcast, and we are honored to be here, so thank you.
Yes, thanks for having us.
So Vanessa and I, we were born and raised in Westchester, New York, and I ended up we're twins. I ended up going to college in Massachusetts. She went to college in Rhode Island, and it was
Sorry. Don't mind him.
Yeah, Buddha's just relaxing.
He's doing his usual position, but the girls aren't used to it.
He's comfortable.
Just calmly pet and it will be fine.
So we both went in for psychology, and I did a lot of research base for the last 2 years of college in ABA, so applied behavioral analysis. So I was focused a lot on learning about, behaviors and just how to turn them on, how to turn them off. And I was just fascinated by it. So then I did an internship at a school. It is a residential program for children with severe autism. And I fell in love with it. It was challenging, very challenging, because we are working with, the kids that a lot of people don't know about. When people say autism, you think, typically it's a shy little kid that's, hanging out by themselves. They don't have eye contact.
Living in their own little world.
Yes. Yeah. Essentially living in their own world. But the kids that we worked with, they had very severe behaviors. So unfortunately, they were not safe at home. They couldn't stay at home. And so they were in residential programs. So for my internship, I was just hanging out with the kids while they were at school. So I didn't have the experience of working with them in a residential setting. Just, once they transitioned to school, I was there. We would work on everyday tasks, right? So it kind of gives you a different perspective of teaching when you are teaching kids actual life skills that are so important. Like you think math, science, ELA, all these things. It really comes down to functional skills. So we're teaching them math, but we're teaching them how to use measuring cups to make snacks for themselves, healthy portions, and I wanted to pursue a career in ABA. I wanted to become a behavioral board certified behavior analyst, and it unfortunately didn't turn out that way for me just because I did get a severe injury. I've had 2 really bad TBIs, or traumatic brain injuries, and they were really bad concussions, and I got them within a year of each other. So unfortunately, one of the students I had was having a behavioral issue, and I was hurt in the process. So I was very isolated, just alone by myself. I couldn't tolerate sound. I couldn't tolerate noise, or noise is sound. I couldn't tolerate lights. It really turned my whole world upside down. And I'm a very social person, so I think that I had to take a backseat for quite some time just so that I could really focus on my recovery. I had to go to vestibular brain therapy and a lot of physical therapy, just really trying to regain skills. And yeah, so that's the job. It is one of the most rewarding things on earth, but you know, there is a lot of burnout. There is a lot of turnover just because, you know, you can't do it for forever, you know. But during this time, we were both getting our Masters of Science in Severe Special Ed and with a concentration in autism. And I had to slow that down a bit because of my injuries. I couldn't tolerate screens. I couldn't do anything, you know.
Really, any stimuli.
Anything.
Nothing.
It was a very dark time just because this was all right before COVID too. So before everyone kind of went into isolation mode, I was already isolated for over 8 to 9 months. And at this point, we finished our master's program. We had graduated, and Vanessa's gonna cut in here.
Yep. Okay. It ties into this. So I was working doing the same thing, and she would be at home. And I remember I was talking to one of our best friends, Zelda, and I made a joke with one of my friends. I was like, I just want to work with dogs. Like, maybe I'll do dog walking or go around the neighborhood and just take care of dogs. And
because at this point you were mentally exhausted from the job more so
I was
than you thought.
Physically.
And your sister's not well.
She's not well.
And you're like, what the hell are we doing?
And we were graduating that year with our masters. And I was like, you know, I don't know if I want to be a teacher, because it wasn't just like regular teaching. It was having to teach beyond teaching life skills and all these things. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. So I was making a joke with a friend, my friend Kim, and I was like, I think I want to work with dogs. And she said the same thing. And then one day I was talking to our friend Zelda. She's like the cutest person on earth. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I made a joke that I wanted to work with dogs. And she goes, wait, I know of somewhere you can go work. And I was like, what do you mean? So she had a puppy, a little Cavalier named Jojo, and was training where we work now. And she, her father got Jojo, and he was in a wheelchair. So she was supposed to be his like emotional support and service dog. And she was training with where we currently work. And our boss always said to Zelda, I want you to come work for me. Like, you have this personality and I want you to come work with me. And Zelda was like, wait, I know someone that's like me that could definitely work here. So she got me in touch. And I remember going to the interview and I was like, okay, my resume has nothing about dogs. We have a Yorkie back home in New York who is like not.
She is the love of, well, she passed away last June, but she was the love of our life, and she is the most reactive pup ever. We went to training at Petco for a few weeks, and she didn't know how to sit. She didn't know how to down. Like, it was, we didn't know
on
either.
The leash, she would bark. I think my parents would like amp her up too. They'd be like, oh, there's a dog there. Look, there's a dog. I'm like, now that I train dogs, I'm like, you don't do that. Like, leave it alone. But Zoe was one of a kind. And I was like, okay, I have no dog experience, but let me go to this interview. So I went to the interview and I met with my boss and my old coworker, Dylan. He's awesome. He lives in Australia now.
Alaska.
So close. Whatever. It's an A, right? Thanks a lot. No,
Alaska. He lives in Alaska and he loves it. But I went to the interview and I was talking to them, and it was great because I'm a people person. So they saw that right off the bat, and they were like, okay, so she doesn't have any dog experience, but maybe she could connect on the human like level because we go to group homes.
Yeah. So can you tell them about the position you were interviewing for?
Yeah. So I was interviewing to work at group homes with dogs. So I would take dogs to the group homes, and I'd be there for an hour, and group homes with kids like at risk. And it's a different population. So this is a whole different whole different level of what I'm used to working with. But I was like, okay, like I'll figure it out. And I remember resigning from my other job, gave my notice. I gave a month's notice. And
you were going to get your master's that year.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, here I am. I'm going to go to a group home with some dogs.
Yep. So
mind you, it was a salary position that then she was going into the dog world where it was hourly position. There were no benefits at the time. Like,
there was nothing. So
it was a huge, huge leap. And obviously our parents were just like, what are you doing?
My dad goes, you went to school for psychology and now you're going to be working with dogs? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. So then I got the position, gave him my notice, and I'll never forget. My boss called me the week I was going to start and she goes, I'm so sorry. The group home's closed down due to COVID. I don't have any work for you. And I was like, she was like, you're furloughed. And I was like, Googling, what does that mean? I was like,
friggin' master. She's like, anyway, so about furlough. F-U.
But I could teach you how to brush your teeth. Like, so it was just one of those. I was like, okay. And she was awesome because she was like, okay, like, don't worry. We'll put you on unemployment. Like, you'll get money, but to be on unemployment, you need hours at the job. And I didn't work any hours yet. So she was like, anyway, you could go back to your job. And I was like, no, like, I'd rather just not get paid and stay at home. I was like, Mom and Dad,
No, but we also had a second job that we did part-time as behavioral techs in home. After working very long hours, it wasn't even a Monday through Friday. I actually had a floater schedule. So some days I would work 8 or 9 consecutive days to have 2 or 3 days off. It was just a different kind of
grind.
World.
We used to like sleep at work because they also offered that to work overnight shifts. And we would sleep at work to be able to afford where we were living. So it was just like, it never made sense. Or I was like, hey, Veron, I'll see you later. And we'd see each other every other day, or we'd meet up in the cafeteria because it was troubling times. But
yeah, so then she started working full time for our second job as a behavioral tech.
And it was awesome because I was working with 2 twins who I absolutely love. I'm still in touch with their mom now, but I was able to teach them their name, where they live, all the skills that they need in case they ever got lost, how to get in touch with someone that they do know. So it was a blessing in disguise. And, it was just great to be able to do that full time and do what I was doing. But then thankfully I was like, being raised the way that we were, I was like, I need the experience, even if I'm not getting paid. So I was like, can I volunteer to come work at the facility and do whatever I need to do so I could get hands-on with the dogs and get to know what I need to do and have the dogs be familiar with me, because I can't just take dogs and show up somewhere and be like, okay, maybe they're going to do what I'm going to try to figure out here. So I was able to do daycare because we were still running daycare. And Dylan taught me everything. He and my bosses, but Dylan was working with me all day. He would teach me how to drive and pick up the dogs, how to, interact with the dogs, how even the training that we do, like go place and impulse work. He set all those foundations for me. And it was great because our bosses let Veronica come hang out, and she was still home isolated. So I would drive home because I only live 10 minutes away, pick her up during lunchtime, and she would come and hang out with the dogs. So that didn't require any screen time, or, it helped with her recovery. And it was probably the most therapeutic thing ever.
Yeah, it was such a dark time for me. And just, I couldn't drive. So I would wait till Vanessa would come pick me up, and I would just spend time with the dogs in the yard. And, they would come up. I would love up on them. They would love me. And I started to feel so full of life, because I think nowadays everyone's so distracted with technology and having a phone. And, there's so many people that will play with their dog but have their phone in the other hand, So just being present, like the dogs taught me that to be present and really appreciate, them in that moment, because I was really struggling. So it brought so much joy, and I was looking forward to it every day. So Vanessa would come and pick me up whenever she was working, and I would spend some time there. And my boss she had a 1.5-year-old named Athena, and she was the most perfect baby. And mind you, I'm recovering from a head injury, right? So I thought, oh man, if I'm watching the kid, I don't want them screaming and yelling.
She never would scream or cry. She was like perfect.
She was a perfect baby. So I fell in love with her, and I was able to, offer hanging out with her. And I would start doing some like filing for paperwork, because I saw it. I used to work at a law office when I was younger. And then in college, I worked, in an office position as well. So I said, I could file these papers for you. It would actually be amazing for my recovery for me to be able to do things that don't involve technology. At that point, I could only have 1 hour of screen time a day, 15-minute increments. But even like 5 minutes was too much. So then I was spending majority of my time hanging out with Athena, watching her, and then also helping around the office. So I jokingly said, I would love to work here. I'd love to be in an admin position, and if anything ever comes up, right? So I, at this point, was still working for the school. I was out on
disability.
Workers' comp, and at one point they actually told me that if I got furloughed, it would be better for me. So then I was furloughed, and I was kind of like, oh man, I don't have any income coming in at all, So I had, and I couldn't, unfortunately, I could not work with the population that I was working with, just because I couldn't risk getting a third head injury. All of the doctors told me, they said, if you get a third head injury, you will decrease the quality of your life. And so at that point, I figured, I was like,
shit's heavy.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, I need to finish this master's, because they told me, they said you could take a break, and I already took a semester off. I was a semester behind. So I said, no, I'm getting this master's. I worked so hard for it. And so at this point, everything's remote because of COVID, and my professors would mail my packets of homework and exams and everything. I'd have to have the computer open. They'd see me open up my files and then take my exam. So I finished the whole semester of a master's program just with good old paper. I was able to read in small
Good old,
yeah,
just like
no
your date
technology.
book, Laurie. Just like your date book.
So then Vanessa was finally, you could talk on this piece of how you were hired full time, because things got lifted. And
do you have any questions so far?
I mean,
you know us. We could talk forever.
We had this discussion. Like I said, it's heavy duty. So with your head injury, you could read and comprehend, but it was more the light from a screen that would just give you a headache.
Yeah. So reading at first was difficult because of my vision. So the words on paper would be moving. So I couldn't read, because that would also hurt my head. But then doing small increments of like filing paperwork and, using that skill to expose myself more to words, I was able to then, read. It would take me forever to read and do homework assignments. And fortunately, I had accommodation, so they allowed me to have extended time. And then it became easier. After vestibular brain therapy, I was able to really focus on, getting out of the house and going on short walks, and kind of doing little things every day, building a routine for myself to be able to get back to that spot where I felt comfortable. You have to be uncomfortable. You had to push yourself, and it was difficult. It's difficult to, your head is killing you, and you just, you have to finish this paragraph. So it took me a long time to to be able to get to that point. But I just kept pushing myself. And I think the dogs, like I said, I would kind of reinforce myself and reward myself with, hey, as soon as I get this stuff done, then I can go hang out with the dogs, you know? So kind of doing that, something to look forward to, it gave me like a purpose, you know?
And do you have any residual symptoms or anything like that now?
Yeah, so I used to have photographic memory. It was amazing.
Her memory was...
It was amazing. I could look, growing up, going to New York City, I could memorize all of the streets and tell you exactly which sidewalk to be on if you wanted to get to, you know, anywhere. And now I can't, unfortunately. My memory isn't, there's some things that I don't forget. I feel like a lot of things that weren't relevant to me, I just have it in a different compartment in my head, you know? So I really focused on being present and making new memories, making new associations with positive things to really help myself. But it unfortunately, yes, I do. I don't have that photographic memory anymore.
I would love a photographic memory.
Oh, it was amazing for exams. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could memorize everything.
Page 54.
Yeah.
Left side, first paragraph.
And this came from a blow to the head.
Yes. Okay. I was hit over the head and then collar grabbed to the floor. So I had a neck injury as well. Kind of like a whiplash.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead, Laurie.
So we can say where they work, right?
Yeah, didn't we say where they work?
No.
Oh my God, I'm terrible.
That's all right. I was in it.
Can you please say where you currently work?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we work at She's a Keeper Dog Training in Stow.
And you work with Melissa too.
Yeah,
yes.
we work with Melissa.
That's how we met Leah and Lori through Melissa and the Toss and Fetch League.
Yes.
But
which
before
we'll get
we
to.
do all that,
Yeah.
your boss,
Isis and Andy.
Isis and Andy.
Yep.
Okay. Who was the baby you were taking care of?
Athena.
Isis's baby.
Their baby.
That's Isis's
Yeah.
baby, Athena.
Yeah.
Athena. Yeah.
I'm like, Athena, I know a husky named Athena. No, I was like, Laurie, it's a human baby. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then you were taking care of the kid.
Yes.
And you're like, hey, I want to work here too.
Yeah.
And then you were working there.
Jokingly, but hoping, like wishful thinking.
And Vanessa, you never, did you eventually end up with bringing dogs to, where were you bringing them again?
To group homes.
To group homes.
Yep.
Did you eventually end up doing that once COVID was lifted?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So we're organized.
there we
All right,
are.
I got this.
There we are.
Well, let's take a step back from there for a second. So Ronnie is home recovering. Vanessa is working at She's a Keeper. And what was the process of Ronnie being offered the position that you are in right now? Because I'm gathering that happened before the group home dogs and
Yes.
stuff like that,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Well, Isis loved Veronica, and so she's literally, it's like we're copy and paste sometimes.
Yeah, I think she
Not
loved,
exactly.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that.
Exactly.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so at
She-
all.
Okay, good.
So she loved Vanessa and said, I wish there was another you. And so there is another Vanessa. That's me.
Happen to have
So with Isis, it's a small business and she's an amazing boss. And, you know, being a mother too, like she was doing everything, all the admin work. And I said, you know, I would be happy to fill a position. I kind of created my position. And now I'm the operations manager of She's a Keeper Dog Training. And, just added a little fancy title there, but I handle kind of the day-to-day operations, hiring people, hiring wonderful staff like Melissa, and, you know, communications with clients all day and payroll, all that jazz. So I was able to, I also do dog therapy handling, which is great. I do that kind of on the side, because I love working. I love teaching. And I still wanted to incorporate. Vanessa and I tried to create a program really where she would do the dog therapy handling and then I would work with the BCBAs to help families. There are so many families that have children on the spectrum and they want to get a dog, you know, but it's very challenging.
I'm sorry,
you know,
BCBAs?
board certified behavior analysts.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
So I would work with them kind of as a technician to help because I understand the dogs, right? Like at that point I was working with dogs. I was familiar with them too. And Vanessa would do the dog training. She'd do the dog handling as the handler. And we would help the kids, portion out the dog's food, how to brush the dog, how to pet the dog. But there are a lot of dogs that the dogs were great for the families. But the kids, they're just not interested in the dog. And, I think it's that wishful thinking. They want their kid to love the dog just like they love the dog. But it's okay if they don't, They just need to learn how to coexist.
And the bond, that was what I was running into a bunch of times where, the dog is bonded with the mom. And she's like, but I want the dog to be bonded to my son or my daughter. And I said, well, you need to let the child do the high value treating, give them the good treats, have them do the daily tasks. Like that bond is going to happen if the dog sees high reinforcement from that kid. And I worked with one family too. It took 3 years for their dog to be attached to the kid. And then now they're always together. So it took a while, but it was also hard too. But you'll never find better, clients and families to work with than someone who has a child who does have special needs, because they know we need routine and we have to stick to that routine every single day. So,
and patience. Patience is huge.
a lot of it. So
you're saying that the parents have the patience that they need to then kind of transfer that over to caring for the dog, training the dog.
100%. Like even when you explain things to them, they're like, got it. Because they have to do it with their child at home, or it's just going to be all over the place. You need the structure. And, like we were saying, you train dogs, and some people just don't want to follow, the rules that you implement. And then the dog will listen when they're hanging out with you. But then when they go home to the family's like, my dog's not listening. My dog's doing this. My dog's doing that. And it's because you're not keeping that routine for the dog. So we found it was super helpful. When we were training with the families got it quickly, but it took a while. And then we were noticing like, okay, maybe this isn't what we want to do. So we started just going to group homes, and we would even go to schools. So we worked in one district, and this was after a high school student had passed away in like a spring break trip. And the school had reached out to us and was like, hey, do you guys have some dogs that could come and visit? Like the entire school has just been down. I get chills. So we were like, yeah. So all 4 or 5 of us grabbed 2 dogs each. We went to this high school and we brought the dogs, and the kids were so happy to just be there and be present with the dogs that we were like, wow, okay, this is something that, we have a good thing going. Let's keep doing this. So we had offered to go once a month. And we went to that school once a month. And when they knew that the dogs were there, they were like, we're coming. So the school bell would ring and they would just run into the library, and like the dogs were there. We would do tricks with Zeus and Keeper, and they were so happy. And then the high school had us already. Then the 2 middle schools reached out and were like, hey, we like dogs. So we were like, okay, let's go do that. And then even like the vaccine clinics, we got called by that district to go to the vaccine clinics. Oh, wow. And Zeus, who's our dog, he's like the love of my life. He would give kids hugs. So he would put his little, like they would put their foot out. He would hug them and they'd get their shot. And then when they were done, they'd get a double high five. So it was like, awesome.
Her eyes are glowing as she talks about Zeus. She's like, I just love that dog. Well, you can see like your face light up.
I think it's important too for us to share the story of Zeus and how we got Zeus.
So Veronica was recovering, right? She was at home. And one day on June 5th, I'll never forget it, June 5th, I brought Zeus home because Isis was like, this dog has been boarding here for 8 months.
Dude, 8 months.
His family got stuck in India due to COVID.
Lockdown.
Due to COVID.
That's right.
And he was there, like he was there for 8 months. And a bunch of the previous staff like always loved him, but like Zeus was just attached to me. And I brought Zeus home. I put him on a leash, brought him home. And I remember opening her bedroom door and she was like, Zeus, what are you doing here? And then
poor Veronica is just constantly, well, she was rehabbing. Like the whole, you're over here living your life. And she's like, with the little bit that you have, you're trying to do master's work.
Yeah, seriously.
What a show.
She lit up and she was like, oh, let's go on a walk with him. So she was getting out of the house more. We would take him out to the park, do some off-leash work. And it was great practice too, because I was learning how to use the e-collar and recall. So her and I would stand like far from each other and we'd be like, Zeus, come. And he'd run over and like, we were so attached. So every weekend I was like, so Isis, can I bring Zeus home? And she was like, yeah, go for it. Because he was genuinely so happy. And I'll never forget the day that Andy, he literally goes to Veronica. He was like, okay, they're moving to India full time. We have to measure him because he's going to get shipped out to India.
They wanted me to measure him. And I had to get the tape out and start measuring his height and weight. I was just so emotional.
I was like, Andy, you're torturing
She's
her.
like crying as she's like, he's way too big to go on a plane. He'll never make it.
And Zeus, he is a 7-year-old Pomsky, Pomeranian Husky. So he lights up when it snows. He is the happiest dog on earth. And he would stay outside in a blizzard if we'd let him, you know? He
wouldn't survive in India. Like
No.
Is what you're trying to say.
Yes. So I was emotional. I was like, he's never going to see snow again.
Oh my Lanta.
And I remember like it was the week that he was supposed to go. And Veronica was like, how do you feel? How do you feel about him going? I was like, I need him to go so I can just like process this and mourn because I'm going to be so sad when he's gone. Like we loved him. After June 5th, he came home with us all the time. Like he was our dog.
Basically.
And I remember we had roommates at the time and one of my roommates was like, you know, I was like, I wish he was mine. And he was like, you can't have him. He belongs to someone else. And I was like, I know, but we love him so much. Like we want him to be ours. And he was like, that's not how it works. And I was like, okay. And then one day,
well, isn't he negative?
Yeah. One day we were at work and Isis was like, and Andy were like, hey, we have to sit you guys down. We have to talk to you guys about something. And I was like, okay. Dylan.
Like, what Dylan, more? What more?
It's like Dylan and Zelda were there, and
not what you want to hear from your boss.
No, it wasn't. Well, we had a steak dinner, so it was a really great day. But I was like, okay, let's chat. And he goes, you know, I know you guys like want a Pomsky, and I was like, not really. Like I want Zeus. I don't want a Pomsky.
Yeah, it has to be Zeus. We want Zeus. No Pomsky.
So he was like, you know, there's a little white female Pomsky and, you know, she needs a home. And I was like looking at Veronica. I was like, I don't want the dog. Like, did they get us this dog?
Also, we didn't have a dog going into the dog world, right? So it kind of felt weird because we didn't have that experience. And everyone we would meet, they'd ask like, oh, what dog do you have? You know? And Vanessa at that point was getting more into training. She's like, no, I don't have a dog. And financially, you know, it's such a huge responsibility. And we were just not in a place to get a dog at that point.
Yeah, both of you didn't have the job and COVID and then furlough my ass. I didn't have that. And then, you're at home trying to heal.
If it was Zeus, then we could do it.
Yeah. So we would have made it happen. So then Andy goes, okay, you know, I just want to let you guys know Zeus is your dog. I was like, what? Like, there's a video of it, and we're literally crying. We're like crying because we're like, what do you mean? And he goes, you know, we spoke to his owner, and we asked him if he could stay with you guys because we saw a different side of him where he was so happy and full of life. And, you know, he could have went to India, but he was a dog that like struggled with like transitions. So it was like a new environment. He's anxious. He used to like, he used to just howl all the time and bark. And he had a lot of separation anxiety, but when
you still fell in love with him.
Well, I loved everything about him. And they were like, that's your dog. And I was like crying. I went to go pick him up and he's been our dog since. And he is the best. He's the best.
Honestly, he's the best gift we've ever gotten. And at this point,
he is literally the best gift that someone has ever given me. Like, I don't think anything could ever top it. It's Zeus.
May, June, July, August, September.
We were
only, so we've been working there for 4 months at this point, right? And, right? Was it 4 months? Yeah.
We got him in September.
Yeah, something like that. And you know,
Yeah, 4 months.
Isis, when she had asked his previous owner, she said it so respectfully too. Like, she knows how much they love him, and said, you know, he was upset about having to ship him out to India. He didn't want to put Zeus through that because he knows he would be miserable in that transition. And she said there is this other option, you know, and she's known Zeus since he was 8 weeks old. And at that point he was 3, 2 turning 3. And she said, like, I feel like this dog has chosen these girls. You know, I've never seen him so happy, and this is an option if I just wanted to put it out there. And so then at that point, the previous owner had asked, like, can you tell me a little bit about them? Can I get in touch with them? So we got in touch and, you know, kind of told him about us. And at this point, we were sharing a lot of pictures and videos that we had made with Zeus, and he said it was an easy decision, you know. So at that point,
awesome.
Yeah, we were living with people too, and we were like, we gotta tell them we got a dog now, you know. We were just bringing home a dog.
You didn't have to tell me. You could just bring him home every day.
Oh, Howley Husky.
Well,
yeah.
and he was already staying with you though some days a week, right? You were having him on the weekends,
and they
stuff,
loved
so.
him.
Yeah,
Like, they loved
but we just moved to a house with our 2 friends, so it was during that transition where Zeus was with us at our old apartment and we were packing up, and then with us when we moved to this new house when we settled in. So I mean, it was
like, we have to tell the landlord.
yeah. And then we were also thinking, you know, it's so hard to get an apartment when you have a dog.
Yes.
You know, so especially a dog that's half husky. So he is a Pomeranian mix, if you know,
If anyone asks.
yes.
I would just say
He
that.
doesn't. He looks like a. He doesn't.
He
look
looks like a mini husky.
No.
He
He
really
looks like a
say-
Shiba. A lot of people think
I
he's
definitely
a Shiba.
would say some sort of Spitz mix, and I would leave it at that.
Just a
Okay.
It's just a cotton ball with legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cute.
And he goes to the group homes and everyone loves him. Like, I ask the kids, I'm like, who's your favorite dog? And they say Zeus. I'm like, yes.
He's like, that's right.
Like, you need to tell my boss that, because I'm like, yes, it's him. Like, Zeus, he's a keeper.
Oh my god.
And we always say, there's no us without Zeus.
Oh, this is so cheese fest. I'm drowning in it.
I love it.
I will say
He
though,
has US in his name.
yeah.
Oh my God.
I do have to say too, so tying back to our previous experience, Zeus is, because he's husky, he kind of like, he's very independent. You know, he's not one to go and cuddle with people. And sometimes, like, even when we bring him to visits, he will just go off and sit by himself. So it was important for us to bring Zeus along. And a lot of people, or the kids, would say, why would you bring him? He doesn't want to interact with anyone. And then it was an amazing opportunity to teach the kids, hey, you know,
Boundaries.
boundaries. Not everyone wants you to be all up in their space. You know,
Yep.
You have to ask before you go and pet anyone's dog. But also, if you see that this dog wants to kind of go, and, you know, there's a lot of helping the kids self-regulate, which is a very hard skill, and we use Zeus as that example. So we'll bring him along, and they understand. They're like, oh, okay, you know. And we've had a few kids on the spectrum that would say, hey, like, he's like me, you know. And those moments are so special because, you know, everyone's different. And everyone should be included. Everyone should be cared for. So I think that it's just an amazing opportunity. Now that Zeus is used to everyone and he's built relationships with the kids, he gets so happy to see them. And then there are new kids that come into the home, and Zeus will kind of, you know, be off on the side, and they say, he doesn't like me. And the kids say, hey, it's taken me years to get on his good side, you know.
3 years.
But with the visits that we do, the dogs really just serve as vessels for conversations with the kids, and I think that it's important to know too, these kids have so much change in their lives every day, and most of them, people aren't consistent in their lives. So I think right now, Vanessa and I have been going for 5 years, and some kids, they age, it's group homes ages
like 5 to
12, and then 13 to 15, and then 16 to 20.
21.
Yeah.
When they age out. Yep.
So there are a lot of kids that we've known since they were in the youngest group homes that have transitioned to new homes, and we will be there. We tell them, hey, we will be there. And they get so excited because we're familiar faces. We're
and
that
the dogs.
constant.
They see the dogs and they're like, Zeus, Max, Keeper, they're all here. Like, I'm changing. I'm in a new place. I don't know anyone, but I know the twins and I know the dogs, and they know the tricks, and we teach them like dog handling. So they help us generalize the training that we do for the 3 weeks when the dogs come to train with us. And families love it because their dogs are boarding, and we have some dogs that board for like a month. So that's 4 opportunities to go to different group homes and love on the kids, and everyone wins in that situation.
Wow. So you go once a week even now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I go to a place, I drive an hour out to my place, and I'm there for an hour. Then I drive 45 minutes to the next place. Then I'm there for an hour. Then I drive an hour, 15 minutes home. And I've been doing it for years because it's so important to be that constant for them.
Yeah. So the group home kids are different, obviously, than the cases where like you got really injured.
Yes.
Can you just differentiate that?
Yeah, of
slightly?
course. So the kids in the group homes, there are some of them are able to go home on the weekends, but they have to stay in a residential setting to, help them stay on track, help them stay safe. They go to school at their residence. They don't go off-site.
For your program.
For my programs, yeah. But these kids have more emotional, behavioral struggles versus and honestly, a lot of them have history with self-harm and get hospitalized pretty frequently.
Yep.
So yeah, you can speak on that.
You'll show up one week and you're like, oh, hey, where's this person? Oh, they're not here. So obviously we don't know the whole backside story, but I'm pretty close with them. So they'll let me know, and they're like, hey, this happened. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I will try to bring their favorite dog that I can like remember on my own the next week. And it's helped kids get out of bed. Like I tell them, hey, if you want to see the dog, come downstairs. And they're like, no, they haven't left their room in like a week. And I'm like, well, let's see. And they'll come downstairs and hang out with the dog.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's been helpful because the kids, some of them don't know what they want to do when they age out of the system. And a lot of them have gone to do vet tech work. They want to work with dogs. They go to help at shelters. A lot of them help me do CGC testing.
Oh, nice.
So I'll generalize the dog and run the whole thing. And they're like, oh, I really like this. I'm like, hey, you could go help other people pass these tests. You could be the stranger walking in the street trying to say hi to the dog, make sure that they're friendly. And, another cool thing too is that I bring, like I know with myself, I bring a lot of dogs that are nervous and scared of people, but the kids know because I tell them ahead. I'm like, hey, I'm bringing someone that's nervous, and they know the drill. They know, okay, no eye contact. We can't even act like we know that the dog is here. And the dog opens up, and it's awesome because they're proud of themselves when they're like, I helped that dog open up a little bit. I'm like, yeah, you did. Like, we're a team. And they're like, wow, this was great. Can you bring him next week? I was like, let's see. We'll see. But then I bring the dog, and they're like, that's not the same dog. I'm like, yeah, that's the same dog. And they're like, wow, I helped with that. I'm like, yes, you did. So it's rewarding.
Yes, extremely.
And we also, when we were at the schools, I remember at that point, we were going to every school in that district. So I was like, this is like a full-time job. Like
It was
a full-time job. And our favorite classes that we went to every single classroom in the school. Like depending on the month that we went to that specific school, they're like, okay, Vanessa, you're going to go to wing A. Veronica, you're going to go to wing B. And we'd like high five and like break out, and we'd go to each class, and we'd always have to give the instructions. And we were teaching like typical kids, we were like, hey, these are the rules. You're not going to be stepping on the dogs. We taught them how to pet the dogs and how to be appropriate, so they understood. But our favorite was when we would go to the special education classrooms.
100%.
Because those kids, some of them are petrified of dogs, like Veronica was saying before. The other ones wanted nothing to do with the dogs, or they were overly obsessed with the dogs where they're like, ooh, eyeballs, let me touch them. I'm like, oh, we don't touch there. So it's teaching them, hey, use one finger. That's what Veronica would do.
Yeah.
Pet them with one finger, then pet them with two. And then you get to 5 and you get to be able to use your whole hand. They would love that. And I remember we went to this one classroom. And I get emotional telling this story. But we went to this one classroom and we had Zeus, Max, and Keeper that day. And Audie. She's this golden retriever. She's a gem. And we had the dogs. And I remember we showed up to the classroom and there was this little girl in a wheelchair. And her translator wasn't there that day. She had left a little bit earlier. So I was like, oh, is it okay? Like, does she like dogs? And they were like, oh, we think she does. So I grabbed Zeus because Zeus doesn't lick. And I love that. Like, he's just present. And if he wants to give like kisses, he'll like sneeze and it's the cutest thing. But I brought Zeus up and Zeus just sat close to her lap and she like tried to pet him. And I remember Zeus gave her a little kiss, and which he doesn't do. And I was like, Zeus. And you just see this like tear roll down. And I was like,
oh dear.
I was like, oh, that's so cute. And I was like, oh, like, what's her name? And they said Rebecca. And then me and Veronica are just crying. And they're like, what is going on? Like, why are these girls crying?
The twins are losing it.
And it was because our older sister's name is Rebecca. Yeah, is Rebecca. Sorry. Is Rebecca.
And the story gets darker.
Is Rebecca. And we do what we do because of Rebecca. We went into special education because of Rebecca. Like, we have always wanted to help, and we're first generation. So like, I remember when we were younger, we would try to help our parents, but we didn't really understand much. And then once we started to actually learn how to write an IEP, which is an individual education plan, and how to advocate, I was like, wow, we didn't know. So now that we know better, we do better, and we help all of our friends and family that ever need, educational advocates. But we were talking to the girl, Rebecca, and her translator wasn't there, but she speaks Portuguese. So then me and Veronica were talking to her in Portuguese, and you just see more tears just rolling down her face because she was so happy that people were able to communicate with her. She was so happy that, Zeus was just there and she saw Max, and we would just talk to her and you could see her eyes light up. And although she couldn't speak, just watching her facial expression, it was just,
I get chills.
It was just one of those, I was like, wow, like, these dogs do so much. And that was the circle for us, in the sense of like, we are doing what we wanted to do with this career, where it's working with kids who, have special needs and can't speak, because I love working with kids that are nonverbal, because I'm like, okay, let's figure this out. What do you want? I'm going to figure it out. And we work together and we figure it out, and I could see them light up. I'm like, okay, we got this. So it's just one of those, like, that the whole classroom, everyone was crying. The principal was in there. It was just one of those, it was the best day ever. So we love what we do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's just amazing. Nice you get to incorporate your old world into the new one.
Yeah. It's so, like, my dad, when I told him I was going to work with dogs, he goes, dogs. Like, I was like, okay. I was like,
he was like, are you losing it?
I was like, maybe I'll take a week to not talk to him, let him cool down. And then now, he's like, he can't wait, in the future when we have our own business. He's like, oh, I could see myself helping you out with the business. And I was like, there we go. This is the same guy.
All right, Dad, get on the wagon.
That's awesome, though.
So in the future, we do want to have our own business so that we could have Rebecca help out, because her dream job is to be a receptionist. That girl loves to talk. That girl works at the law office that Veronica used to work at. She's on the typewriter. She does, everything that no one wants to do anymore, and she loves it. So our goal is to have her be a part of whatever business we have. And she, she could answer the phones or something. We'll have people call and say hi.
Oh
man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
those are a lot of hours for dogs to be doing therapy work too.
An hour?
'Cause you said you go to one place and then you go to another place. So
We would take a break in between.
Yeah,
A good hour and a half in between.
No. The group homes that I go to, they rest for the 45 minutes. But then again, we just hang out. Like, it depends what dogs I'm bringing. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, let's do the cuddly dogs. And those dogs just want to sit on people's laps, just like Buddha, and just hang out and do nothing. So it's not like they're physically doing a lot within the hour, but they're happy. If they're getting treats, they're happy. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about Blitz and how he fits into this whole picture? So
poor Blitz.
Just give our listeners a little bit of backstory. So I met Ronnie through Melissa because she said, hey, I work with somebody that has a dog and I think that they would be a really good prospect for playing Frisbee. And I always get really excited when that happens. And so I took a trip out and met Ronnie and Blitz, and we threw some rollers, and I was definitely like, yeah, he can totally do this. It could work out really well. So now we see each other on Monday nights at the Frisbee field, and Vanessa comes and doesn't play with Zeus because he's not that much of a toy guy.
No, I keep track.
Yeah.
I'm the one.
Oh, yes, the scribe.
Yeah.
But that's how we met. So I met you two through Little Blitz. So how did he come about in this whole thing?
Oh yeah, Blitzy. He is amazing. He is one of a kind. So Zeus was 6 years old at that point, and Vanessa and I were thinking, we need to get another dog. And because if Zeus wants to retire from group homes in a few years, then he can do that. But we need another dog to bring to therapy visits. So I was kind of on the look for dogs. A part of me wanted Pomskis, but then another part of me was
She wanted a Cavalier too at one point.
I love Cavaliers. They're so cute.
Me too.
And they're very therapeutic.
Yeah.
So my boss would always send me the kind of links like, hey, this group on Facebook, and it was from breeders, right? Because at that point I made a decision that I wanted to get a dog from a breeder just because I wanted to know what I was getting.
Sure.
I didn't want it to kind of be a hit or miss, and on Facebook there was a post for 2 German Spitz. And they were 2 black males. And I was like, that dog is cute, but I have to do the research, right?
He was covered in dirt. Like,
he's a farm boy.
They said he was black, but I thought he was a brown dog because he was full of dirt.
That sounds like a nightmare.
So German Spitz, I was looking, and they're rare here in the States. So there are only 300 of his breed. And I wanted to do more research. So I reached out to his breeder and I said, hey, I'm interested in learning more about the breed. Can you tell me about them? And I did research on my own too. And I was thinking, this is a working dog. Am I going to, get a working dog, or am I going to stick to a Cavalier that's nice and cuddly and, they're easier? But I was up for the challenge, and I really wanted to be able to grow with my handling skills, just because I do most of the administrative work. I don't have as much hands-on experience with dog training, but it is very similar to, ABA and training. And so I understand the science behind training. It's just that hands-on experience, I didn't have enough of it. So I go to Vanessa and I was like, hey, what do you think of this little guy? We could go meet him and see if it's a good fit. And we went to Connecticut. We drove about 2 hours away. And it was between Blitz or his brother, his name now is Fenris. And Fenris was more cuddly, right? So he was cuddly. He was supposed to be about 13 to
It's supposed to be bigger.
Yeah, 15 to 17 pounds. And then Blitz was projected to be about 10 to 12 pounds. And I was thinking, oh, man, I really want to go with the spunky one, And we got Blitz. We brought him home and we were ready to put our training into like every day, right? I did not realize, because we got Zeus fully trained, we never had to, do all of that potty training.
Raise a puppy.
Yeah, raise a puppy. It is a full-time job. And we got him January 13th, so it was winter, and I yeah, I can't with the cold.
We lived in an apartment and had to go up 2 flights of stairs every time we had to potty him.
Ooh,
Oh yeah.
what a treat.
Yeah, it was not fun, and we were very consistent with our the potty routine. So he was fully potty trained within 2 weeks, and we were so proud of it. We're like, he's so smart. So he was 10 weeks old when we got him, but then we discovered that he had tapeworms and he had giardia. So
good.
yeah, and at first I was like, oh man, what
I get it.
what is this? Why did this happen? But being that he's from a farm, yeah,
It happens.
it happens.
Yeah,
It
it
happens. But Zeus stayed at work so that he wouldn't get sick, and it was giardia is disgusting. It is the worst
I know.
smell on earth, and I actually
Like, when it's giardia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But I was like, okay. And I was telling Vanessa, I was like, is it going to be like this forever? Because at first I didn't know he had giardia because he wasn't tested for it yet.
She was like, his poop smells. Is this forever? I was like, I don't know. I hope not.
I mean, generally, shit smells.
No, but
I
giardia is like a
know.
different
I
evil.
know, but it's just the way you were like, I don't know, is this just a puppy thing? So, like, the poop has the worst smell when they're younger, is what you're saying?
I got COVID at one point and I lost my sense of smell.
Thank
It was the
God.
best thing for me. I told Vanessa, don't worry, I got it. I could clean it up. But that point at our apartment complex, people had dogs, but they are the most reactive dogs ever. And so that did not help with Blitz because he with his breed, they're very reserved. And he didn't have that exposure. He didn't have socialization, that key component to, a successful puppy. Yeah. And I didn't realize how big of a toll it would take. So then as he started growing up and we were exposing him, he would go to daycare with Vanessa. He was great. And he was reactive though on walks and it was just, he was overly excited, and a part of me, he wasn't going to be a therapy dog. He isn't a therapy dog, and he's therapeutic to me, but
Right.
the reason I got him was for our careers, and I think a big part of getting Blitz, I had to mourn the life I envisioned, right? Like, I thought it would be amazing. I'd be able to bring him everywhere and he'd be great with all dogs. He'd love kids. He'd love people, but that's not him, right? He's very nervous around kids, and
Same.
I know sometimes I'm like, okay, buddy, I get it. I'm on the same boat. But there was a lot of kind of shame that I felt, and I would dread taking him out because I was like, oh man, these dogs are going to be there. He's going to be reactive. And, a part of me was just like, we work with dogs, Vanessa trains dogs. Why can't we get this under control? But then we went to our trainer. So we seek training outside of She's a Keeper.
Sure.
And we met Lynn through a group class, and she is an amazing dog trainer.
She's awesome.
Yeah, we've been working with her since Blitz was 6 months old, and he's 2 years old now. And there was a lot of, with the training that we do, I could have put tools on him and get him to come when I wanted him to. But there was a lot of understanding, like, why is he scared? Why is he acting this way? Like, what's the root cause of it? And with Lynn and training, we really had to break it down. We had to work on building our relationship. I think it's like a relationship reset is the name of her program that we did. And it really, a lot of it was me. I was nervous, I was anxious, and I didn't know how to advocate for him. So I had, and also I think the biggest thing is like with understanding prey drive and like pack drive and all of those things, because he was going to daycare every day with Vanessa, and then he'd come home and he's like, okay, I got my fix. I got to socialize with people, and now you feed me, and then that's it. And I kept him home because I work remote, and really focused on building our relationship, and like that high value comes from me, right? Like he wants to seek me out instead of going and playing with all those dogs. So then I started generalizing his training, and it was amazing. I was just so impressed with, he was with a bunch of dogs. I'd call him over, he'd come running, and he just wanted to be with me, and kind of, he's so intelligent. Another thing that Lynn mentioned was he's not your typical dog that people train, right? So with Blitz, he would frustrate a lot of trainers because he makes them have to think outside the box. He's not your standard, like, you could do what you've been doing it forever and it works. It really was learning how to train him specifically. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. He's not a biddable dog.
No.
What a trainer would say, for example, Raven, we're obviously bonded, but she will do anything for a piece of food or a toy, and she will love you forever if you have that stuff.
Yeah.
And we obviously have to put some parentheses around that for training, but it's just within her. And Blitz is just more independent minded.
Yes.
And from a trainer's point of view, if I'm going to take a dog into a ring and compete with a dog, what kind of dog do I want? A dog that that's not as independent minded. But that doesn't mean that the dog's not trainable as you're experiencing. Yes. Like you're having a great time training him, and it just might be taking you a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And you'll have to, like you said, think outside the box. And all it means is the next dog that you train, it's going to be that much easier.
Yes.
Because right now you're looking at a situation where you have a dog that has taken a while to get to where he is, and you've learned so much along the way, and all you're going to do is be able to apply that down the road. So yeah, it's really cool to see. I think that you're going to do great things with him too.
Yeah, he's so intelligent. He's an amazing dog to train. I feel privileged to be able to work with him, and he picks up on things so quickly that even when I'm doing training classes and whatnot, usually I have to do it without him because I need to learn how to master whatever I'm asking him, because he's already one step ahead of me. But we've worked on rally, and we haven't competed yet, just because he was so nervous, and I really wanted him to kind of master his skills, and then I would be able to generalize it to a different environment. But with Frisbee, toss and fetch, I was so nervous because I said, oh man, I can't let this dog off leash. Like, he doesn't have reliable recall yet. And also I was just nervous with him being around other people. And I told Melissa, I was like, oh, man, like what if he runs off, or what if he starts barking at the people that are on the sideline? Like, I don't know what to do. Or even today we were hiking with Melissa, and this lady that saw Blitz, she was fascinated by him. He's beautiful. He's a great dog. He's very good looking, and he's small and fluffy. And a lot of people are kind of like, I need to pet that dog. They come into his space. So I've learned how to advocate for him. I step right in front of people and I say, no, thank you. Like, we're training, and I've built a better relationship with Blitz. But with toss and fetch, I was so scared. I was so nervous. I just didn't want to, be embarrassed of my lack of handling and Blitz, he took a few rounds for him to get comfortable, but then he has such a great play drive. He loves to play Frisbee. So I had to learn, Leah taught me how to throw a Frisbee because I had no clue how to throw a Frisbee, but I wanted to do it. I wanted the exposure. I'd take it. And he was so good. He's so good at home too, that I was like, oh, we could do this. We could bring this onto the field. And he's caught some, he's come a long way. I think the timer that goes off was a little scary for him at first.
That was so funny. I'll never forget it. He heard the timer and he stopped midfield and stared at it and was like, what is that thing? So we had to...
And we're like, okay, reduce the volume on the timer. Blitz is about to come up. Everybody turn away.
Well, the timer is the voice of God.
Yeah.
I mean, Leah, do the countdown thing that it does. It's so nervous.
5, 4. It does. It's
3.
loud.
So we had to play it in
God.
our backyard every time he was there. Even if we would practice playing Frisbee and that timer and sound had to go off so that he was used to it. And I'll never forget when he first saw Al, he literally was like,
Al.
yeah, I love Al.
Yeah.
He was like, oh my God, there's a guy here.
That's not Jackson.
Yeah, that's not Jackson. He loves Jackson. But I was like, and then it was great because even going to the group homes, I brought Blitz to the group home and I was like, thank you, Al. You helped me.
Oh, man. But everyone...
Wait, you ended up bringing Blitz to the group home?
Oh, yeah. I was on vacation. I had time. And I told the kids, I said, because everyone saw pictures of Blitz and they were like, can you bring him? Can you bring him? And I was like, no, guys, I can't. And they were like, please, 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 we won't look at him. And I was like, okay, if you promise, you won't look at my dog, okay. So we brought him and he did phenomenal. He
always surprises us.
He surprises us because we give people the warning. We're like, be careful. He might bark at you. He might try to herd you, put you in a circle, make you walk to the corner. He does that. And he might muzzle punch,
I mean, you're bringing this dog to these places and you're like, hey, listen, he doesn't like you and he might punch you. And they're like, do you have insurance? And you're like, nah, what we're going to do is we're going to wing it.
No, and they love it because they ignore him and then they're like, oh my God, he's so cute. And they're like, can I touch him? I'm like, what's the rule? And they're like, okay, I won't touch him. And it's crazy because Blitz will let them touch him and he opens up and I'm like, who is this? Who is this dog? And then I'll call Veronica. I'm like, you won't believe what Blitz did. She's like, did he run away? I was like, no, he's still here. I was like,
he's still with us.
He's still with us. And he does great. And then the kids are like, can you bring him back? And I was like, listen, one trip a year. Okay.
His level of obedience because of Rally is so impressive that, that he shows off to
he has
the kids.
A prance. You've seen his prance.
Oh, yeah, he's going to be phenomenal in the ring.
Yeah, I have to get there.
With his little hair wispy.
Yeah. He's so cool, and he has to be a trick dog.
Yeah, you
next.
know how it is when they're in the ring and those
pants are just swaying in the breeze.
So cute.
Oh my God.
He's so they see that part of it, and they want to learn more about how to get a dog to that point, right? So yeah, Blitzy, he's a good boy. I love him. He's crushing it with Frisbee now because I know how to throw a Frisbee. I've gotten a lot better.
And she's not running the whole time.
Oh man, I would be running back and forth on that line. I would be covered in sweat just running 60 seconds. So then when there was 90 seconds, I was like, oh man.
And I'll never
that extra 30 seconds.
I'll never forget the time Leah caught it on tape, Blitz catching the Frisbee. And towards the end, she goes, wow, I can't believe he did it.
Leah ever support? He's totally going to do it.
Oh my God, that
is the best.
Bitch did it.
The funniest thing too with Blitz is he gets alarmed with loud noises, but everyone on the team is so supportive and they're so excited for him. Everyone was so happy. They were yelling and he was just he didn't care, which was amazing, So I'm grateful to be on that team and be able to, continue exposing Blitz to different places and getting that exposure. So, yeah, I mean, toss and fetch people. I love you guys.
Yeah, it's a good spot and it's a good team. Everybody's like super supportive and it's a hard environment. It really honestly is because it's wide open space and it's, for me, it's something that the more you do, the better you get at it. It shouldn't be this phenomenal thing that you think about because if you do things over and over again, you know, you should be improving. But everybody does improve at a different rate. And I mean, when I first started out, oh my gosh, we were like really bad. Ruben and I for the first like year. And you learn your dog and you learn different things about technique and wind. And there's so much going on. It's such an interesting sport and it's such a handler specific sport. Mm-hmm. Like if you can't throw, you could have the most talented dog in the world and it's not going to make a lick of difference, you know? But I will say that for every 10 people that reach out to me and say that they're interested in disc, and maybe I'll do like a little virtual lesson or they'll come over and we'll talk about like, okay, this is how you build a little bit more drive in your dog and this is how you throw. I would say 1 in 10 people actually stick to it and teach their dog how to catch and retrieve and throw. So I think it's great that you stuck with it because it is so focused on the handler and it is putting a lot of pressure on you to perform.
Yep.
And in other dog sports, if you can walk in a straight line, you know, you're good to go. Learn the signs.
Yeah, and I appreciate those videos.
Which ones?
Your training videos.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I would watch them over and over and over. And just like I said, I had to learn how to throw a frisbee. I couldn't throw the disc. So Blitz could go and get, I was doing rollers at first. Mm-hmm. And then he was running past the rollers. And I was like, okay, I guess we got to graduate over to throwing. And again, I was so nervous about him being off leash because he doesn't have that reliable recall yet. And I made a promise to myself that with this dog, I would do everything. I want to work on our relationship and be able to say that I've done my best and tried everything to use tools as minimal as possible. And I'm proud to say that even with his heel and all of that, I've used a slip lead or what is it? Not a slip. What is that? Collar.
Slip. It's like a little slip.
Yeah. And I'm not opposed to using tools because I think they're amazing. I want them to be layered into his obedience. I want it to be that extra reinforcement, you know, like I ask you to come and you come and you know what that means versus like teaching. I didn't want it to be used as a correction. And I would find myself in a position where I was like, I'm getting frustrated. Like I would get embarrassed. I'm like, man, like we can't advance in toss and fetch if he's not off leash and, you know, running for and coming back with the disc. So
which he totally does.
He does.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and my dad says I'm the problem.
We should say too
he does say that.
That Blitz has a long line on sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes a short line, sometimes a longer line, but that's a great option if you're developing the game and you're developing a reliable recall. You know, we don't just throw our dogs in these situations with no leash. Yep. You know, you said you guys have a 50-foot line. Yeah. Which is a little unwieldy. But if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. And so if you come onto the fields, hey, use the leash, use the line. I don't care as long as it's safe for the dog. And he's such a little dog. It's not like it's dangerous for him at all. So that works out for you guys and it helps you feel better because there's a little bit more control. And also if he took a right or a left off the field, any one of the 10 of us that are standing out there can step on it, which we would gladly do.
Melissa's ready to run after him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, but we're doing recall training now and because he's ready for it. So I've done everything I could to work on his recall and now we're building in that extra foundation.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait for the spring.
I know, we're excited.
I know. I think it's going to be a good season.
Yeah.
It's the winter doldrums right now, but April will be here before you know it and I can't wait.
I keep thinking about your relationship with Zeus because it was like so filled with flowers and rainbows and because I always like to see people's emotional connection to the dog.
Yeah.
And it took me forever to bond with Buddha, not because he had any particular thing going on. It was just took me a long time because, I had a love affair with 3 other dogs. And then you said, I had to face all that disappointment. And I was like, I know this is early in the conversation, but it keeps spinning around in my head. And you were like, I was just so ashamed and disappointed. And like, you took it so personally, but that's like when we talk to a lot of pet parents, there's this shame that they feel when the dog didn't turn out like they wanted. Like, oh my God, I was supposed to let my kids handle it. And now we have a little sometimes piranha or reactivity, whatever, not perfect. Like it could be the smallest thing, but it's a mark on this very colorful story that you were planning.
Yes.
Right. And he is a little fluff ball. Yeah. I never look at a dog and I'm like, I gotta touch it. I really never feel that way. I'm like, you have your space and then we'll talk about it later. We'll meet up. And then if you love me, we're good. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just keep thinking. And then it took you a long time to train him. And then you're like, I love him. I love him. I'm like, well, it took a while though. It wasn't love at first sight. You were like, when I met him, I hated him. But now we get along.
Yeah. No, you're here, you see us, we light up when we talk about Zeus because Zeus is just, he's a gift that we received and we're so grateful for him. And with Blitz, he is, I think for me personally, he's perfect. Yes, he had all these things.
Not in the beginning.
Not in the beginning. No. At first I was like, oh man, this extra work. And, it was very hard. I felt very alone, really. I was just like, oh, man, it's embarrassing that we work with dogs. We have this dog handling experience, but our dog's reactive, But I think that the biggest thing was me shifting my mindset because there are a lot of clients that come in and they want their dog to be a therapy dog. And, that was me. But now I'm able to accept my dog for who he is. And I'm grateful.
We love everything about him. Like there's not one thing I wouldn't change about him. There's days like if he's unwell and he doesn't feel good, I'm like, buddy, are you okay? Like he's just laying on the couch and he has these puppy eyes. I'm like, you could be loud. You could I'll do something. Like do something you're not supposed to so I feel good, And He's growing up. He had to mature. I think that's something that we had to learn too, because we raised him as a puppy, and he did phenomenal with the toilet train. Like he was awesome.
He's so smart. His intelligence just surprises us every time, and I think that also like getting a working dog, is I'm up every day and I'm walking 1.5 miles with him in the morning. Getting that exercise so that he gets his fix, and then I'm able to relax and do my work and he's nice and calm. And during my lunch break, I'll go out and play with him. And, it requires more work. So I'll train with him too throughout the day because he's ready to go, So I think it kind of ties back to what I said before about being present with the dog. So like with Blitz, I appreciate that time so much because he's ready to train and he's ready to do. Like he's waiting for that instruction. He's like, okay, I did what you wanted. What's next? And that excites me. And I love him. I wouldn't change anything about him.
It's just nice because you went through all the phases that a person goes through when they're trying to, even if the dog doesn't have any issues, I could hear the process in your head from, oh, we got a new puppy. Yay. Uh-oh. Oh man, this dog shouldn't go to work every day. This dog should stay with me and I need to bond with it more. And then right away, the dog starts listening to you more. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, I have to do this now. Oh, I'm fulfilling him in this way. Oh, okay. Now we bring, and like he gets better because you got better.
Yes.
So it was nice to hear from the beginning to, okay, this is what we got. We have a plan now. And then moving on.
Yeah. And
how we take things so personally as trainers and how we're so worried to be so embarrassed in front of other trainers.
Even today, he did amazing on our hike. Melissa was like, he was a rock star. I was like, yeah, and we have to give him that credit because he grew up. Like he was a puppy. He's been through the adolescent stage. He's still intact, So it's just one of those, it's educating ourselves and just doing what's best. And Frisbee, we're grateful for it because we get to generalize our skills. Even if he catches the Frisbee or if he doesn't catch it, even though
Who cares?
who cares? He's just there, and he meets new people. When your nieces and nephew came by,
yeah.
I was
Oh
like,
man, my
I know
heart
there's-
dropped.
there's
Ronnie
kids-
was freaking out.
There's
I was like-
kids on the field, you know.
As soon as I saw them walking on, I was like, oh no.
But
I was like, they're so cute. But Blitz, so he ran and he caught the Frisbee. He actually caught it that time. And the kids got excited too. He looks over, he just darts eyes over, and I'm like,
I
oh,
have a
man.
picture of it because you had your camera there that day.
Yeah.
And you just see like him staring down at the kids. And I was like, let's just behave yourself.
And I called him and he came running back. And I was just so proud. I was like, oh man,
Oh,
great
you didn't
job,
eat
buddy.
the children. Good.
You didn't herd
good.
them over to the fence. Like,
Get those kids under control.
He's a funny guy. Like when we came here and bathed him, we were so thankful that you guys let us use your tub because we have one at work. But to bring him to an environment where we know that he gets overstimulated, overworked, like it's harder for us to give him a bath. And you saw how fluffy he is. Like
He's very fluffy.
I think we spent 3 hours brushing him.
yeah.
Wait, and then
drying takes a while.
and then we
too.
even said, hey, we're not going to give him the bath today.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, you got. I'm
Him
like,
so
what do you mean? You're just gonna throw him in the tub? Look at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, brush this out.
Yeah, that double coat. He has like wool on the bottom and then it's this silky fur on top. And, fortunately, German Spitz don't need to get baths as often as other dogs, which I'm really grateful for. Like the dirt, water, everything kind of repels off of his top fur.
Lori's
But-
like, what?
Yeah. No. But
Never gets dirty.
no, he stays clean is what I'm trying to say. Like he's not high maintenance, but brushing. So like we have gotten into that routine because my jaw is dropped right now. There was so much fur. And it was just like, how? This dog is 14 pounds. Like, how is there was a second Blitz created after brushing
It was
him.
like he was a 120-pound shepherd. I'm like, do you ever brush him? I mean, what's happening, ladies?
I was, but not.
Well, that's stuff that you learn along the way.
Exactly.
you know? Like,
exactly.
just-
Oh, I felt terrible. I was like, oh, and I told Lori, I was like, Lori's going to think I'm so annoying, but I was that person. I was
No,
like,
no,
his
I
fur's
didn't.
not going to grow back.
You're too polite.
It's not.
Like, look at these angels just walking the earth. Look how nice they are. Then it's me.
Oh, man,
And then
no.
you're like, this is how we brush them. And I'm like, girl, you got to get in there. You have to lift that fur and you have to brush. You're
The
like,
little
"Oh,
Italian muzzle.
Oh, God. And you're like, well, we brush them, but we never brush them like this. I'm like, you might want to try it.
No, we had to. Yeah, we used this cute little Italian muzzle on him, and
Yeah.
oh man, he was just
Little Cujo.
yeah, he's a lot, but he's so perfect to me, and
And
right,
I'll
it's funny
never-
to hear this because it's like, are you delusional?
No, I don't
I'll
think
never
that.
forget.
No, I don't
It is
think
what
that
it
at
is.
all.
I'll never forget when Lori showed up to the fields and Blitz saw her and was like, what is she doing here?
It's like he needs to report to everyone that he's familiar with that there's a new person present.
That one.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, man.
She's the lady that brushed me and taught my mothers how to brush me, and I hate her. Okay.
So, kind of a random thought, but when I was in 8th grade, I remember our assistant principal, Mrs. Mulready, rest in peace.
Oh.
She said to us, and she was very old, and we're in like 8th grade, so we're like rolling our eyes in the auditorium, but she said, day to day, this is going to go by very slowly. She said, but before you know it, you'll be graduating. And that was the most true thing I had ever heard. And it's the same as when you have a puppy. It's like day to day, it goes by so slow. And you're just like, when is this part going to be over? And then before you know it, the dog's 3.
Yeah.
And I think that giving a dog time to mature and not expecting too much too soon, I'm definitely guilty of that with Raven. And I tried not to do that. I tried to say to myself, just wait for her to mature, wait for her to mature. And then I found myself putting her in situations that were just too much for her, knowing better. But because I have a competitive spirit and I want to get this stuff done, all of a sudden I'm going against my own instincts and my own advice that I just have to take it slow, and it's going to go by slowly. But before you know it, she will be in a position where she can handle an environment that's a lot. And it's just such an important message because people want their 2-year-old golden retriever to act like a therapy dog.
Yep.
And it's like, maybe they will when they're 8. Like, leave the door open. It might actually happen. It's just that when you have an adolescent dog and it takes them a while to get going and bond, like you're saying, it just might not be on your timetable. And I think that's a really tough thing for people to wrap their minds around because in their mind, they're like, but it's been so long since we got him.
Oh my gosh. We've put in so much like blood, sweat, and tears. But yeah, he's he's so special.
He's so funny.
And it's funny because he's so cuddly and cute with us, you know, because he's comfortable with us that that I was thinking, oh, is he ever going to be a cuddly, like, is he ever going to, you know, want to be near us? Because he's so independent and reserved, but he's a goofball, you know, and it's unfortunate, or at least sometimes I feel like it's unfortunate that not a lot of people get to see how much of an amazing dog he is, you know, and I'm just proud of his progress, and you know, I'm looking forward to hopefully this year we're gonna get in that ring.
Yeah,
and
I think we're gonna have some dates at some local spots. I have 2 dates to send you actually off the air, but we need to link up and get him into some new environments.
Oh, and the dumbbells that you made for us, we have to work on that with him.
Oh yeah,
so
we
appreciate that.
Yeah, he's just. I can't wait to do some scent work with him too, just because that nose. Oh, it works. It works.
What a way to put it. All right, ladies, I want to wrap it up, but because I want to leave room for you guys to come back. This was really, really special, and I know that we could probably go on talking about topics, which would be super fun. So hopefully you guys are up for doing that in the future. I would absolutely love that. But thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your stories.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Yes.
I often listen to podcasts, and sometimes during the interviews, I say, are they going to let the host speak? They're just talking the whole time.
That's us.
But that's us.
That's the whole point.
I know, but you know,
you guys is the important part.
Yeah, I talk too much on this thing, so I'm so grateful.
I love it though. Like I'll text you guys, even though you were here and doing the podcast yourself. And I'm like, oh my God, it was so funny when you guys said this and when you said that, and how Lori responded to this, and Leah already knew what she was gonna say. Like it's just, I drive to New York. I'm like, let's listen to Leah and Lori.
Yeah.
I feel like we may be like the guilty pleasure of
100%.
podcasts. Like they're like, oh, you shouldn't. This is much better podcast. Blah blah blah, and you're like, we listen to Lori and Leah.
Like if I want to laugh, I'm gonna listen.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm
We're the
gonna
guilty
listen.
pleasure. Like
Well, it has
you
to
don't
be
tell
the
people.
two of us.
We're like the housewives, right? Like the housewives.
It's so real though, you know, you guys are just being so honest, and it people are able to relate to it because dog training, owning dogs, like it's hard. And if you don't have that community and you don't go after the right people and meet the right people, you know, it's a completely different world. So we are grateful that you guys invited us here, and we hope to come on again soon.
100%.
You will.
100%. I wanted to say, as a general announcement, you are the first interview that I've done officially since like 2022, because I've had Alex and Autumn and Melissa and Catherine, but they had been on the podcast previously.
Oh.
So it's been a while since I sat with somebody totally cold. So I am starting up interviews again. And I hesitate to say this because something can always happen and we'd have to cancel and reschedule. But I have interviews scheduled for the next month and a half with new folks. And I'm super excited to sit with people that I don't know so well and get to know a little bit more about them and their experience. So I am putting my feet back into the interview water, and my feet are going to get wet, but I'm pretty excited about it. So be on the lookout in the next couple of months on the podcast. We will be having new guests, some with completely awesome and unrelated to dog training, but it's still in the dog world. So I'm not going to say exactly what that is, but just interesting. I think it'll be an interesting experience for our listeners. So again, thank you, Ronnie and Vanessa. Thank you to Laurie, and you will hear from us next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Meep, meep.